Let's talk about the CEO, the boss, Mercedes Moné, and her time in AEW so far. It's been a headline grabbing since day one, and with comes a lot of talk, a lot of speculation, and sometimes some pretty wild rumors. There's one particular claim, one specific question that keeps coming up recently, making everyone ask, is this really true about Mercedes Moné? What is this? Well, it touches on things like her backstage power, her contracts, her booking in AEW. Today, we're going to be putting that question under the microscope, looking at reports and trying to find
Rumors
out
surrounding
the
Mercedes
truth.
Moné
Potentially wielding creative control over her match outcomes have circulated since her impactful debut in All Elite Wrestling. Speculation often arises from her following victory, suggesting contractual stipulations ensuring that she goes over. However, a new report from Fightful Select strongly refutes these claims. The report acknowledged the recurring narrative, almost like clockwork, whenever Mercedes Moné gets a win, there are unfounded claims of her exercising creative control to make sure that she wins those matches. However, Fightful is reporting that that is not the case. In fact, according to their report, sources in the know within AEW and New Japan both denied that type of thing ever happening and said that they've never heard of her having creative control. Now, this denial from individuals familiar with the arrangements in both promotion, well, it's pretty noticeable that they do and that they come out and just say it flat out. Now, explaining why Mercedes Moné has not suffered any losses in AEW thus far, a source familiar with both companies, meaning Moné and AEW, have told Fightful it simply comes down to booking strategy, not contractual demands. The source stated she hasn't turned down losing because losing hasn't even been broached. Both companies had plans to push her heavily. The source stated, indicating her undefeated streak is all due to an initial and deliberate push. Okay? Now, sources Fightful spoke with suggested that any perception of Mercedes Moné having creative control might have largely been in character. Okay? That all ties back to her CEO persona rather than backstage reality. Furthermore, the report highlights a key piece of counter evidence cited by another source. Moné's professionalism during her New Japan Strong Women's Championship match against Willow Nightingale in 2023 was case in point. In that instance, Mercedes Moné actually changed the finish of her Willow Nightingale New Japan match on the fly to lose because she knew that she had sustained a serious injury. Now, she was originally supposed to go over in that match, but she had to pull a pivot, if you will. Now, I think at the end of the day, based on sources in Moné's camp, AEW, and New Japan, the ongoing rumors of Mercedes Moné having creative control over her wins and losses appear to be unfounded speculation, with her booking reflecting planned pushes and her past actions showing more professionalism in regards to her match outcomes. So, while yes, you may not be the biggest Mercedes Moné fan in the world, you may think that she is overbooked, right? Or she gets more opportunities than she should. It's not because, hey, she had this put in her contract when she signed with New Japan at the beginning of 2023 or when she signed with AEW in 2024. That's not the case. The fact of the matter is Mercedes Moné is a big star. The fact of the matter is that Mercedes Moné knows her worth, and the promotions in which sign her to large money deals know her worth. That, at the end of the day, is what the reality of the situation is. Now, you may not like that, and that's fine. That's your, prerogative. But at the end of the day, Mercedes Moné is one of the top stars in All Elite Wrestling. At the end of the day, Mercedes Moné is one of New Japan's top stars, especially in the women's division for both. If you look at New Japan's women's division, AEW's women's division, at the end of the day, they need star power. And Mercedes Moné, at least in New Japan's case, is leaps and bounds their biggest female star. In AEW, I would say Toni Storm is a bigger star, but Mercedes is right up there with her, right? When used, Britt Baker is a top star, right? They had Saraya, but she left. Willow Nightingale, Jamie Hayter. There's a lot more pretty noticeable name stars, but none that necessarily move the needle like a Mariah May, a Toni Storm, or a Mercedes Moné. Now, hopefully they can change that around and they can get some star power going. At the end of the day, that'll be up to, AEW to get that ball rolling, create some new stars. I will say this, though. There is a real situation in AEW right now where they are signing all these talents and they're bringing in all these talents. Some established, some not. And there's not any development going on in terms of star power. It's like if you come in, that's the level that you're at. Outside of, selective names, right? Kyle Fletcher, he was made by that Will Ospreay feud. He's a bigger star than he came in. Mariah May, a bigger star than she came in. But outside of that, it's very pick and choosy. It's not a clear-cut thing, and that is one thing that Mercedes Moné has been criticized about. Who has she elevated? I would push back on that. I would say that she's helped elevate Chris Statlander. I would say that she's helped elevate Willow Nightingale. But I can also see the argument that she hasn't elevated anyone, right? So I think that's something that you definitely have to address. You have to look at and you have to be honest with yourself about. But these reports regarding, contractual control, the whole, back in the day, Hulk Hogan had the that doesn't work for me, brother, right? And had creative control, at least in WCW, and to a certain degree in WWE. But I think the stories in some ways have been blown out of proportion. I think in some ways they haven't been highlighted as much as maybe they should. I just can't see Mercedes Moné going in there and be like, well, I'm not losing to X, Y, and Z. And oh, by the way, I'm not losing at all. I cannot see that. But I tried to tell y'all when she first signed with AEW, this is a massive get for them, and they understand that. They know it, they see it, and they believe in it. And when you put pen to paper and you bring in someone at the scale, at the tippy top, and sign someone to such a large deal, keep in mind that Mercedes Moné reportedly signed one of the biggest contracts in the history of the wrestling business and making her the highest paid female star. Okay? We're talking over Charlotte Flair, over Becky Lynch. Now, Becky signed a deal after Mercedes, so maybe Becky's the highest paid star now. But when you pay someone that kind of money, you expect an ROI. And you're not just trying to get your money back. You're trying to 3, 4, 5 times X your money. At the end of the day, all businesses are investments, right? You're just trying to get an ROI. So I would definitely see how bringing in Mercedes Moné is a positive. I would see how bringing in Mercedes Moné is a good thing for AEW. But at the end of the day, you got to get an ROI. And you got to be able to grow your division. You have to be able to build bigger stars. And while I think they've done a phenomenal job with Mercedes Moné, and I've enjoyed her run as the belt collector, at the end of the day, you need to start building out that division. Because what happens when this run ends? Because eventually this run's going to end. I think that's definitely got to be addressed. And I definitely hope that, one day it will be.